Alright, Korean baby, today is the 10th of August. You are 5 years and 4 months old today. Can't believe it. You're 5 years and 4 months old today. Time just keeps moving forward. It always does. So you don't burn bridges and you treat everybody with respect and kindness, right? Because this life is short. It is so short. Never. Alright, so it says spotted, shingly, shaggy, beast. Alright, so spotted, shingly, shaggy, beast are seaweed, green, and scaly. They gobble up enormous feasts of cold and of cod and herring daily. They like to sleep in rocky caves. I've often heard them snore, or dip their toes and tails in waves that splash upon the shore. And sometimes when the moon is bright, I have seen them prancing across the sand all through the night. Those curious beasts go dancing. Oh, they're the seaweed people, right? Look at this. That is absolutely perfect. All right. So our next book from the library is this one. It's The World's Best Fairy Tales. Fairy tales and other folk tales are among the oldest works of man. The most ancient stories in this book probably originated in Asia, then passed through Europe and Africa, and even people adopted the tales as their own, shifting the details to fit local customs, worn smooth by ages of telling. So they were worn smooth. They were worked on so hard that they're smooth stories to be told. The stories acquired that distinctive consciousness of form and rapidity of movement which are among their principal charms. Folk tales were not exactly intended for children. Their audience was the young and the old alike. The tales were of all kinds: myths, legends, sages, fables, comic stories, allegations, the sort that most children like best. Allegations, the sort that most children like best. Today is the one we call the fairy tales. The fairy stories takes place in a strange world inhabited by ordinary people as well as by all manners of extraordinary creatures, giants and dwarfs, witches, and fabulous beasts. In the midst of everyday affairs, wonderful things happen. Animals talk, and even trees. People are transformed into birds and fish, into objects, and then back again. In the world, venture is always rewarded. In the world, virtue is always rewarded. Evil is punished. The weak are helped, and the words are tiny, baby, I'm sorry. And the youngest can be the winner. The fairy tales often is a reassurance at the same time that it appeals to the taste for the marvelous. The fairy tales may exist in many different variations, recorded in many places. In this book, the earliest stories will be written down were those in the Arabian Nights. The first of these came from India and were translated into Persian in the 9th century. The entire work has assumed its present from by the 13th century. Next in time comes the stories of Charles Perrault, who wrote them in his lovely and witty style to entertain the 17th century court of Louis the XV of France. Of course, something is lost in translation. but at times there is unexpected delight. Cinderella's glass slipper is one of the happy mistakes. In the ordinary, it was made of fur. Oh, in the original, it was made of fur, not glass. The first sympathetic reporting of the ancient tales was done early in the 19th century by the Grimm brothers, who set down the stories word for word as the Grimm peasants told them. Wait. The 19th century by the Grimm brothers, who set down the stories word for word as the German peasants told them. Their versions are notable for simplicity and vividness. The greatest storytellers of all was Hans Christian Andersen of Denmark, who arrived somewhat later. His stories enchanted the readers with the personal voice which mingles the plaintive and the humorous, whether they are based on traditional materials such as the tinderbox or are woolly original, for example, the steadfast tin soldier. That was a good one, right? The steadfast tin soldier who, yeah, we'll read it again. This book has a glorious samples of stories from many lands, and each has a special flavor of the country from which it comes. The Three Bears derives particular notes, written by the English poet Robert Southey in the early 19th century, and traveled throughout the world, and was soon generally thought to be an ancient folk tale. The world's best fairy tales is a rich storehouse containing all the well-known and the best-loved stories. There are some for every taste and good variation of each story, good to read and good to read aloud. Listening to them or reading them, children will experience some of the enduring wisdom of other times, when the sense of wonder was very much so alive. That was written by Maria Cimino, formerly the librarian in charge, Center Children's Room in the New York Public Library. That was absolutely beautifully written. I absolutely love all books. But I think that fairy tales for children are a taste of wisdom. And that's why I like to read them to you. I've always liked to read you fairy tales and things like that. Alright, so, okay. This one is The Pied Piper of Hamelin. A very long time ago, the town of Hamelin in Germany was invaded by bands of rats, the likes of which had never seen before nor never will be again. They were great black creatures which ran boldly in broad daylight through the streets and swarmed all the other houses, so that people at last could not put hand or foot down anywhere without touching one. When dressing in the morning, they found rats in their breeches and petticoats, in their pockets, and in their boots. And when they wanted a morsel to eat, the voracious horde had swept away everything from the cellar to grate. The cellar to grate. The nighttime was even worse. As soon as the lights were out, these untiring nibblers set to work. Untiring nibblers set to work. And everywhere, in the ceilings, in the floors, in the cupboards, and at the doors, there was a chase and a rummage, and so furious a noise of gallants, pierces, and saws, and the deaf man could not rest for even an hour. Neither cats, nor dogs, nor poison, nor traps, nor prayers, nor candles burning to all the saints. Nothing did any good. The more rats they killed, the more rats that came. But one Friday there arrived in a town a man with a queer face who played the bagpipes that song this refrain. Who lives shall see, this is he, the rat catcher. He was a tall, gawky fellow, dry and bronzed, with a crooked nose and a tall rat-tail mustache, two great yellow pierced and mocking eyes under a large felt hat, set off by a scarlet cock's feather. He was dressed in a green jacket with a leather belt and an orange breeches, and on his feet wore sandals fastened by thongs pressed around his legs in a gypsy fashion. This is how he may be seen to this day, painted in the window of the Cathedral of Hamelin. He stopped in a great marketplace before the town hall, turned his back to the church, and went on with his magic singing. Who lives shall see, this is he, the rat catcher. The town council had just assembled to consider one more this plague of Egypt, for which no one could save the town. The stranger sent word to the counselors that if they would make it worth his while, he could rid them of all the rats before nightfall. Then he is a sorcerer, cried the citizens with one voice. We must beware of him. The chief town councilor, who was considered clever, reassured them. He said, sorcerer or not, if the bagpiper speaks the truth, it was he who sent us the horrible vermin he wants to rid us of today for money. Well, we must learn to catch the devils on our own snars. You leave it to me. Leave it to the town councilor, said the citizens to one another. And the stranger who brought before them before night, said he, I shall have dispatched all the rats in Hamelin if you will pay me a shilling a head. A shilling a head, cried the citizens, but that will come to millions of tailor. The town councilor simply shrugged his shoulders and said to the stranger, a bargain. The rats will be paid for at 1 shilling a head, as you ask. The bagpiper announced he would begin that very evening, when the moon rose. He added that the inhabitants should at that hour leave the streets free, and content themselves with looking out of their windows at the pleasant spectacle that he was passing. When the people of Hamelin heard of the bargain, they were too exclaimed, a shilling a head, but that will cost us a deal of money. Leave it to the town councilor, said the town council with a marvelous air. And the good people of Hamelin repeated, leave it to the town councilor. Towards evening, the bagpiper reappeared in the marketplace. As at first he turned his back to the church, and at the moment the moon rose on the horizon, the bagpiper resounded, Tartiera, tartiai, tartiera, tartiai. It was first a slow, caressing sound, the more and more lovely and urgent, and so sonorous and piercing that it penetrated the farthest alleys and retreats of the town. Soon from the bottom of the cellars to the top of the garrets, from under all the furniture, from all the nooks and all the crannies, all the corners of the houses, out came the rats, searching for the door, flinging themselves into the street, and trip, 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 they began to run, to fill towards the front of the town hall, so squeezing together that they covered the pavement like the waves of the flooded torrent. When the square was quite full, the bagpiper faced about and still playing briskly, turned towards the river that runs at the foot of the wall of Hamelin. Arriving there, he turned around to the rats who were following. "Hop, hop, hop," he cried, pointing with his finger to the middle of the stream where the water whirled and was drowned down as if through a funnel. And hop, hop, without hesitating, the rats took the leap swim straight into the funnel. Plugged on the head foremost, and disappeared. In plunging, continued thus without ceasing till nightfall. At last, dragging himself with difficulty, came a big rat, white with age, who stopped on the bank. It was the king of the band. "Are they all there, friend Blake Koch?" asked the bagpiper. "They were all there," replied the white rat. "And how many were there?" 990,991. Well reckoned, well reckoned." "Then go and join them, old sire, and au revoir." And the old white rat sprang on. Hi, baby. Don't get in the video because you don't have any clothes on, okay? Yesterday I had to edit it. All right. What are you doing? If you sit down right there, I'll read you the story too. It's the bagpiper and the rats. Would you need something? No. Okay.
Just seeing you.
Oh, I love you, baby. And if you give me a little bit of time, I'll give you a hug. Okay? Give me a little bit of time. Yeah. Oh, careful. All right. Into the river swam a whirlpool and disappeared. And when the bagpiper had thus concluded his business, well reckoned. Then go and join them, old sire, and au revoir. And the old white rat sprang in his turn into the river, swam to the whirlpool, and disappeared. When the bagpiper had thus concluded his business, he went to bed at his inn. And for the first time in 3 months, the people of Hamelin slept quietly through the night. The next morning, at 9 o'clock, the bagpiper appeared in the town hall, where the town council awaited him. "All your rats took a jump into the river yesterday," said he to the councilors, "and I guarantee that not one of them comes back. There were 990,999, and a scrolling ahead, reckon. Oh, and a shilling ahead, reckon." Like he's like reckon my pay from yesterday. "Let us reckon the heads first. 1 shilling ahead is 1 shilling. Is 1 head the shilling? What are the heads?" The piper did not expect this treacherous stroke. He paled his anger, and his eyes flashed red. "The heads," cried he. "If you care about them, go and find them in the river." So replied the chief counselor, "You refuse to honor the terms of your agreement. We ourselves could refuse you all payment, but you have been of use to us, and we will not let you go without a recompense." With this he offered him 50 taler. "Keep your recompense for yourself," replied the piper proudly. "If you do not pay me, I will be paid by your heirs." Thereupon he pulled his hat down over his eyes and hastily out of the hall and left the town without speaking to a soul. When the people of Hamelin heard how the affairs had ended, they rubbed their heads, and with no more scruple than their town councilors, laughed about the bagpiper, who, they said, had been caught in his own trap. But what made them laugh above all was he threats of getting himself paid by their heirs. Ha! They wished they could only have such creditors for the rest of their lives. Next day, which was a Sunday, they were gaily to church. They went happily to church, thinking that afterwards they would at last be able to eat some good things that the rats had not tasted before them. They never suspected the terrible surprise that awaited them on their return home. No children anywhere. They had all disappeared. Our children! Where are our poor children? Was the cry that was soon heard all over the streets. There's the man, the bagpiper. Then through the east gate of the town came 3 little boys who cried and wept. And this is the story they told. While the parents were at church, a wonderful music had sounded in the streets. Soon all the little boys and all the little girls who had been left at home, attracted by the music sounds, had gone out to the great marketplace. Then they found the piper playing his bagpipes. Then the stranger started to walk quickly, and they had followed, running, singing, and dancing to the sounds of the music as far as the foot of the mountain, which one sees on entering Hamelin. At their approach to the mountain had opened a little, and the bagpiper had gone in with them, after which it had closed again. Only the 3 little ones who told of the adventure had remained outside, as if by a miracle. One was a lamb, and could not run fast enough. The second, who had left the house in haste on foot, sod, and the other, bear, had burst himself against a big stone and could scantly walk. The third had arrived on time, but while hurrying to go in, had struck so violently against the wall of the mountain that he fell backwards at the moment it closed upon his comrades. Hearing the story, his parents redoubled their lamentations. They ran with picks and mattocks to the mountain and searched till everything to find the opening through which their children had disappeared without success. At last, the night falling, they returned desolate to Hamelin. But the most unhappy was the town councillor, who had bargained with the piper, for he had lost 3 boys and 2 girls, and to crown all, the people of Hamelin overwhelmed him with reproaches, forgetting that the day before they had agreed with him. Oh, now everyone has someone to blame, right? It wasn't all his fault, though. Everyone agreed with him. What had become of these unfortunate children? The parents always hoped that they were not dead, and that the piper must have come out of the mountain, would have taken them with him to his own country. This is why, for several years, they sent in search of them to different countries, but no one ever found a trace of the 4 little ones. It was not till much later that anything was to be heard. About 150 years after this event, when there were no longer any of the fathers, mothers, brothers, or sisters of that day left, they arrived one evening in Hamelin, some merchants of Bremen, returning from the east, who asked to speak with the citizens. They told how, in crossing Hungary, they had sojourned in the mountains country called Transylvania, where the inhabitants spoke only German, while all around them nothing was spoken but Hunganese. Those people also declared that they came from Germany, but they did not know how they chanced to be in this strange country. Now, said the merchants of Bremen, these Germans cannot be other than the descendants of the lost children of Hamelin. The people of Hamelin did not doubt it, and since that day they have regarded it as certain that the Transylvania of Hungary are their country folk, whose ancestors as children were taken from Hamelin by the bagpiper. There are more difficult things to believe than that. Yes, there are. All right, baby. I love you. Today is the 10th, and today is your special day. Every 10th is a special day for you because you were born on the 10th. So that's like your number, right? So if I was home, though, we would be making a cake and having candles and doing all kinds of fun things. I love you, and I miss you more than you know. I never wanted to leave your side. Mama likes adventures, and she likes to go places, and she likes to do things. I like to be places. I like to touch things. I like to see things. When I was little, my papa was very sick. He got sick when I was 6 years old, and he didn't know how long he had. The doctors gave him 6 months to live. So he set me up for who I am today. I'm a lot like my father. He liked to go places and do things. Your grandfather was such a good man. He really was. He wasn't always the best husband. He wasn't. But he was a good father, and he was a good man. He was always happy, always laughing, always wanting to go somewhere, always wanting to do something. He'd get us out of school and be like, well, do you want to go to the movies? Pick something. He'd tell us pick something is what he'd say. Pick something. What do you want to do? The music would be on in the car, and he'd be like, just sing. It doesn't matter. Just sing. And he'd have us sing. And he would just teach us everything. Our days off, we never had a day off. You never do in life. You call it days open, right? So my father would be like, well, you have an open day, so you're going to go down to the house and you're going to work on, we were trying to put a jacuzzi in the basement or a hot tub in the basement. We were trying to put a bar in the basement in one of the houses. My father owned several houses, and he just wanted us to have, he just wanted to do certain things before he was passing on. So we had a lot of projects that we were working on. My father, he'd have us up in the cities all the time too. He'd have us in New York City, and he'd have us in New Jersey, and he'd have us in Pennsylvania, and he'd have us down to Delaware and out to Georgia, and so we were just traveling places because he wanted us to be places and to see things and not to just be shelled into where we live. That's why Mama would do that with you all the time. When I had you, I'd be like, well, where do you want to go? And we kept it to our little shell. We kept it within our radius of where we lived. I wasn't, you were too little to go out of state with at that point in time. So it wasn't like, well, let's go down to Washington, D.C. and see all the museums because they're free down there. Mama wasn't doing that with you yet. But I had plans. I still have plans. And, I think that you would like to see the Science Museum. I would hope that you'd want to. I think that you'd like to see some art museums, some more of them. Mama already took you to some. If I was home with you today would be an extra special adventure because we go on adventures all the time, but Mama just likes to make the 10th extra special to you with a cake and candles, and I know Papa said I was going to be ruining your birthday, but I wasn't. I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to have you enjoy your day. It's your day. Karina, baby, I can't wait to see you. I really do. I love you, and I know that time's getting closer and closer. I can't wait to see you. I love you. Let's do Lila Tove and good night to you. Lila Tove, may your dreams come true. We sing Lila Tove, may Israel protect you throughout the night until we reach the morning light. I love you. I do. Just like Papa always used to say, Mama's his sun, Papa's my moon, and you're, quite literally, you're our rainbow baby, and we love you. We both love you no matter what. It's unconditional love. It's not earned. There's nothing you can do to lose it. Okay? There's nothing you can do to lose it. Mama and Papa will both always love you, baby. Will always love you. I love you so much. I love you so much, and I miss you. Every second of every day I miss you. Good night, my baby.